Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is TVP World. You're watching World News Tonight. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. U.S. President Donald Trump says he is not sure he can end the war in Ukraine after speaking with both Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Vladimir Putin. He also revealed that new sanctions may be coming and that Patriot missiles could be sent to Kyiv. More on that in just a moment, but first, tonight's headlines. OPEC Plus pumps up for August boost. Irregular crossings prompt border measures. From Poland to orbit, a direct line into space. In a notable departure from earlier promises, President Trump now says he's unsure if he can bring an end to the war in Ukraine. The U.S. is weighing the delivery of Patriot air defense system, while Moscow, according to Trump, is already anxious over the threat of new sanctions. Our correspondent Oz Chatterjee is in Kyiv. So Oz, how significant could these developments be for Ukraine, especially given the recent deadly strikes against Kyiv and other cities?
Well, look, with anything that Donald Trump says, it's important to note that it's just something that he has said at the moment, and that's in conversation with Zelenskyy. That doesn't always translate to immediate policy. What we have seen in the last few weeks is a new policy coming in, halting the shipment of air defense missiles to Ukraine, something the Ukrainians were totally shocked by as that news came through. Zelenskyy has since been on the phone with Donald Trump, who has also been on the phone with President Putin, as you said. And in those conversations, he agreed with Zelenskyy to help strengthen Ukraine's air defenses. He also gave some comments on Air Force One about new sanctions and potentially sending those missiles to Kyiv. But look, he needs to follow through with that on policy for Kyiv to feel the benefit of it. Saying those things alone won't be enough. Let's take a listen to what he said on Air Force One on Friday night about sanctions.
We talk about sanctions a lot, yeah.
What does he say?
I would say he's not thrilled with it, but, he's been able to handle sanctions, but these are pretty biting sanctions. No, we talk about sanctions a lot, and he understands that it may be coming, and, he's a professional.
Now, this comes immediately following Russia's largest ever drone strike on Kyiv, the capital. 539 drones sent, 2 people killed. Overnight, Saturday morning, Russia also launched another large-scale drone attack, 322 drones, 4 people dead, 37 injured. So these talks that Ukraine is having with America about potentially sending new missiles and sending and increasing sanctions on Russia, this is something Kyiv is really pushing for. But what Kyiv is going to be hoping for is more in the way of actions rather than words. For one thing, they will feel at least a little bit more positive about the things coming out of the White House within the last few days than they have done over the past 6 or 7 months of Donald Trump's reign as his second term in the White House. So Ukraine will be hoping for much, much more in the way of policy. For now, we're still at the word stage. Back to you, Benjamin.
All right, so still a lot of uncertainty here, but in the meantime, thank you so much for your input, and please stay safe. Appreciate it. Poland will introduce temporary border checks with Germany and Lithuania starting Monday, citing a sharp rise in irregular crossings. The 30-day measure may be extended if needed. Authorities stress the move does not violate Schengen rules. Zuzana Jurek reports on the government's response and growing regional pressure.
On July 7th, Poland will reinstate border controls with Lithuania and Germany. Poland's Minister of the Interior visited the Lithuanian-Polish border on Saturday, where he insisted that the government's decision is driven by the hybrid warfare waged by Eastern authoritarian regimes.
We're introducing these border controls in order to fight the precedent of the instrumentalization of migration, fight against people smugglers, and apprehend illegal migrants. Polish-Lithuanian relations are very good, and we identify problems that require joint action. We're talking about the 13 places that are subject to controls, and if there's a need for any adjustments or changes, we'll decide together.
Poland has seen a surge of attempted illegal border crossings on its eastern frontier since 2021. Warsaw acted to curb the movement by installing some 200-kilometer-long physical barriers. However, migrants are still being trafficked from Belarus through Latvia and Lithuania, as sufficient means to prevent such movements are not put in place by the Baltic states. And this is not unprecedented either. Border controls are currently carried out by more than a dozen Schengen countries. This also includes Germany, which reinstated border checks with Poland in October 2023.
If the Germans abolish their controls, which I remind you they've had in place since October 2023, we'll also see no reason to control those entering from Germany. But today, we have to take such a decision for the safety of Poland, the safety of Poles. And this is the main reason for reintroducing border controls.
In May, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz introduced stricter controls at the German-Polish border, including a revised asylum policy. The decision was met with criticism from Warsaw.
Our concern is and must be the preservation of the Schengen area. I understand the need to strengthen controls, but these enhanced controls should be primarily aimed at the external borders of the European Union.
Though some politicians doubt how effective these controls might end up being.
From my point of view, it's an unnecessary decision. I doubt it will create security or prevent all the migrants.
Additionally, for some domestic observers, the decision to reinstate border controls is driven less by security considerations, but rather by domestic politicking.
I do not think there is any major crisis on the Polish-German border. The only crisis I can think of is the presence of the far-right strong arm groups that are apparently successful in influencing the government policy.
The right-wing activists and right-wing parties are claiming that there is a huge wave of uncontrolled irregular migration coming from the West, which does not, in fact, respond to the reality. The figures are quite low. 4,000 people roughly were sent back from Germany since the beginning of this year.
According to officials, this is a temporary decision, with the checks set in place for a 30-day period, though the Polish government is already signaling an extension beyond the deadline is being considered. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
OPEC Plus will raise oil production by more than 500,000 barrels per day in August, marking its biggest monthly increase this year. The move reflects changing global demand and internal pressure among producers. Konrad Gorlinski report on what it means for the energy market, including here in Poland.
OPEC Plus agreed on Saturday to raise production by 548,000 barrels per day in August, further accelerating output increases at its first meeting since oil prices jumped and then retreated following Israeli and U.S. attacks on Iran. Saturday's meeting brought together the top 8 heavyweights of the oil alliance who will deliver most of the production increase. These include Russia and Saudi Arabia.
OPEC Plus is thinking that it is ready to fight for the market share among each other, among everyone, and by doing so also to decrease the price.
A low price can't be good for Russia as its budget needs oil revenues and it's already struggling to offload existing supplies due to sanctions. However, just a day earlier, at a meeting in Moscow with his Saudi counterpart Faisal bin Farhan, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said he's fully behind OPEC Plus's decisions.
We are mutually ready to continue our cooperation in the format of OPEC Plus.
It's important to know this isn't a true production boost, but rather a rollback of cuts agreed to by Saudi Arabia and Russia in 2022. Russia aimed to fund its war in Ukraine, while Saudi Arabia pursued economic diversification. The resulting price surge, which benefited Russia, drew criticism from Washington, prompting then-President Joe Biden to vow a re-evaluation of U.S.-Saudi ties.
Needs a different sort of relationship with Saudi Arabia.
Now, this year, in April, the group set out to boost their production by 137,000 barrels per day every month until September 2026. They only managed that pace for a month, however, as they tripled the hike to 411,000 barrels per day in each of May, June, and July, and now further accelerating the pace of their increase in August. The group, which pumps about half of the world's oil, says they're increasing production to regain market share, and some say they may also be responding to U.S. President Donald Trump's demands. So why did Russia offer so little resistance? Well, it may be putting on a brave face while also betting that lower oil prices will undermine U.S. shale production.
Russia might also play this long game of decreasing the pace of shale revolution inside US, but in a short term, it is a pain for Russian budget.
For consumers around the world, however, we may see some positive effects of these decisions at the pumps quite soon.
If there is no big escalation in Ukraine or in the Middle East like we've seen lately, there should be some decrease in oil prices starting Monday.
So it's good news for us, but with a possible 18th round of sanctions on the horizon, Russia may soon start to feel the squeeze. For TVP World, I'm Konrad Gorlinski.
A critical point in what experts are calling Poland's most severe hydrological drought in decades. On Saturday, the Vistula River recorded its lowest ever water levels at one of Warsaw's monitoring points. Aisha Abaja was at the river and brings us this report.
As of Saturday afternoon, the Vistula River behind me has dropped to some 15 centimeters in some measuring points. This is a historic low for the river in Warsaw. And according to meteorologists, this may not be the bottom yet. Across Poland, 68 hydrological drought warnings are now active. The Institute of Meteorology and Water Management says that at 73% of its stations, water levels are in the low zone, with 25 locations already below historic minimums.
What's going on with the Vistula? Well, there's very little water in the Vistula. Unfortunately, we're seeing this issue along the entire length of the river. Today, hydrological warnings have been issued for the lower Vistula as well. There's very little water there too. But of course, right now, almost everyone is talking about Warsaw. Today, we've already broken the absolute minimum water level we've ever had for the Vistula in Warsaw.
And it's not only in Poland. Water levels are also dropping in the Rhine in Germany, affecting shipping routes. In Hungary, the Danube has receded sharply near Budapest, prompting concerns over water supplies and transport. Forecasts predict temperatures well above 35 degrees Celsius in the upcoming month of August, which may intensify the drought levels. For now, stay tuned with us in TVP World. This is Aisha Abacha.
It was a rare opportunity for young minds on Earth to connect with space. Children and teens spoke live with Polish astronaut Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski aboard the International Space Station. They asked questions and learned about his mission. Alex Sumlinsky reports on the out-of-this-world exchange.
It takes teamwork to make any dream work, as the saying goes, and that was just the case on Saturday, where everything had to be planned down to the last second in order to enable a live connection between children and teenagers gathered at Rzeszów University of Technology and Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski. ARISS volunteers in the US, visible on a screen in Rzeszów, were ready to establish the connection the moment the ISS soared over the range of the antenna located at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in the US, state of Maryland.
NA1SS, NA1SS, here is K6 to UE for scheduled school contact. Over.
K6 DUE, it's NA1SS. It's NA1SS, it's Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski from the International Space Station.
And they were off, with the students asking the second pole in space about an array of topics and issues, ranging from how to become an astronaut, if he has to wear his spacesuit at all times in space, what he took to space, and about the experiments he is conducting.
For example, we're testing nanomaterials that make up various sensors, which we may wear in the future directly on our clothes. Another technology measures radiation levels that may allow us to explore space much further. And we're also studying brain activity.
Uznański-Wiśniewski and the rest of the Axiom 4 crew reached the ISS on June 26th. During his time aboard, he is conducting 13 biotechnology experiments prepared by Polish scientists.
The doorway to test many technologies that were impossible to prove functional on Earth.
Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski, scheduled to spend 14 days on the International Space Station, is already halfway through the journey.
With summer heat beating down on Warsaw, museums are offering the perfect indoor escape. From cutting-edge art to captivating history, there's something for every age and interest. We've rounded up some of the best exhibitions to help you stay cool and inspired.
Hot Town, summer in the city as the Lovin' Spoonful sang back in the 60s.
Hot town, summer in the city, back of my neck getting dirt and gritty. Bend down, isn't it a pity? Doesn't seem to be a shadow in the city.
So what better way to cool down and soak up some culture than by visiting one of Warsaw's resplendent museums? Take Zachęta, for instance. This summer, Zachęta offers a high art hit of the 60s, the ultra-Instagrammable Unapologetically Bold. Expect pop colors, a hipster's heaven if ever there was one.
This summer, we would love to invite everyone to Zachęta National Gallery of Art to see an amazing exhibition called Spaces that consists of many well-known artists from the second half of 20th century. You will be able to see an amazing installation by Wojciech Fangor or Magdalena Bakanowicz and just get to know a little better the environment art. Also, I would like to remind everyone that on Thursday, Zachęta has free entrance, so you can just come to see us for free.
More into history than hashtags? The Museum of Warsaw has its own take on summer loving. Their latest exhibition dives into the 1955 World Festival of Youth and Students, which brought 170,000 young people from across the communist bloc to Warsaw. It may have been billed as a Marxist meetup, but what unfolded was closer to a proto-summer of love. Revolutionary ideals weren't the only things being exchanged.
Museum of Warsaw waits for the visitors all the summer, and you shouldn't forget that it is really in the center, the real heart of the old town of Warsaw. We have magnificent objects that tell the history of Warsaw, and we also have a great temporary exhibition that tells a story when the whole world came in the middle of the 1950s in Warsaw. You should come and visit us.
And if you need a moment of calm after all that ideological and emotional intensity, why not chill among the marble busts? The Royal Castle is showcasing the classical bodies carved in marble. They are mostly nude, but it is justified by the weight of antiquity. Finally, the age-old question: how to entertain the little ones without spending a penny and still feel like a responsible adult? The Ethnographic Museum has your back. Behold the Polish Flowers exhibition. Hopefully the ankle biters will learn something, whilst you can savor another hipster moment.
We invite parents and children to come to visit State Ethnographic Museum in Warsaw. We have still the special family exhibition Polish Flowers. You can see it behind me. It's a really colorful special exhibition, really important to visit it during summer. This is the best month to visit it. And we also have some special activities, workshops here in this space.
So come on, and dance all night. Despite the heat, it'll be all right. Or at the very least, you'll leave a little more culturally satisfied.
President Donald Trump has retreated from his earlier pledge to quickly end the war in Ukraine, recently saying that he may not be able to bring the conflict to a close. He has hinted, however, at the possibility of imposing sanctions on Moscow. This comes as Kyiv experienced its largest aerial attack since a full-scale invasion, alongside reports of delayed U.S. missile deliveries and another private call between Trump and Vladimir Putin. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss these developments is Diane Francis, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council and a leading voice on transatlantic policy and Ukraine's future. Hello, ma'am, and welcome to TVP World.
Thank you.
So Trump was asked whether he's still confident that he can find an end to the fighting in Ukraine, to which he replied that he didn't know. He can't tell whether or not it is going to happen. This is, of course, a very stark difference from his usual kind of confident stance and being able to bring this war to an end. Do you think at this point he is just keeping his messaging ambiguous, or do you think the phone calls and the airstrike has changed some calculations within the Trump administration?
Well, I think a number of activities have transpired. And, I actually would probably believe that he is sincere in what he is saying this time, because it does represent a climb down from his boasting that he could fix this situation, which, by the way, hasn't been fixed for centuries. He said that Putin just doesn't want to stop the war. And that is a very important statement. It's not only upsetting, but I think it does make me realize, and should make everybody realize, that there's no more fantasy about, fixing this problem on the part of Trump. And that, he's got to continue to put pressure in whatever way he can, but hasn't been. And so I think it may be helpful. He also had two very important phone calls around the same time, because, Putin has just made a fool out of him, because every time he talks jubilantly about we're getting there or we're talking, he bombs the heck out of Kyiv and the rest of Ukraine. The two most important phone calls, I say, that's happened today is the call by the Chancellor of Germany, Merz, who, in response to the fact to rumors that the Americans were pausing shipments of weapons to Ukraine, said to Trump, "We will pay for U.S. weapons to go to Ukraine." In other words, it looks like a blank check from the world's third biggest economy, fourth biggest economy, that it will pay the bill just to ensure that weapons keep flowing to Ukraine, and it will also create profits for the United States. The other important phone call he made was to Zelenskyy, Trump, and they both agreed to jointly work together on industrializing the military situation and working together to make weapons. So it's a change in the whole situation for the alliance.
All right, so I would like to unpack some of these phone calls. Like you mentioned, shortly after the Trump-Putin phone call, Zelenskyy also spoke with Donald Trump and also expressed optimism afterwards, posting on social media about the continued U.S. support. Do you think that this is more diplomatic lip service, seeing that Zelenskyy now understands dealing with Trump's mean having to be more cordial when it comes to messaging? Or do you see anything substantial being established there?
Well, I don't want to second guess any of these guys. I don't know whether they're being honest or dishonest or fluffing it up, but just taking it on face, and this is based on statements they've made publicly, Germany is now fully bankrolling Ukraine's war effort, it would appear. And Zelenskyy is fully endorsing a partnership to make weapons with the United States. So if those two things are as said, that to me is a good thing for Ukraine, because it means Europe has finally understood that they've been handed off the problem.
There's also some conflicting information that we are getting as well when reports circulating that U.S. did halt weapons supplies to Kyiv. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni actually said the U.S. did not hold the weapon shipments to Ukraine after having spoken to Trump. Where's the disconnect coming from?
This is a very weird situation. And of course, you can spin a great conspiracy about it, because the way it looks right now is that this defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, who's been not in favor of the Ukrainian situation or NATO, unilaterally paused the shipment of some weapons to Ukraine in recent days. This is not the first time he's done that, apparently. He's done that before, and each time it was, withdrawn, the pause. And he each time claimed, well, our stockpiles of weapons are too low. And research now, the analysts are now saying, no, it's not too low, but it's just him. So, did he purposely try to create a furor to sabotage and get everybody all upset or not? I don't know. Is it just a rookie error? Is this guy just out of control? So that's all very strange. And then equally strange, as you pointed out, you have the Italian Prime Minister Meloni saying, oh, the weapons were never paused. Well, how does she know? And then you had The Economist magazine say at first that all the weapons were paused. And then, of course, we know that that's not true. So the whole thing is just a sort of a disinformation mess. And all I can say is that we can probably conclude that Trump has given up diplomatic efforts with Putin, and he is now going to realize that it's got to be military and weapons, and Germany's going to pay for it.
And it does seem like Trump is going to try and tackle the Russia issue economically as well. He says that, well, Putin understands U.S. sanctions, biting sanctions, according to Trump, may be coming, and he's already worried about it. Now, of course, this is another step of kind of trying to pressure Russia. Do you think this will be effective, and how committed do you think Washington will be when it comes to sanctioning Russia?
Well, with Trump, you really don't know. He's on again, off again. But sanctions by the Americans against the Russians is long overdue. I mean, he unleashed a boatload of sanctions against every country in the world except Russia. And, he's got to do that. The second thing is that, the Europeans also have to get their act together. Last year, the Europeans spent more money importing Russian gas and oil than they did giving military assistance to Ukraine. That's crazy. So that's got to stop. That's got to stop immediately. And that's a huge subsidy to the war. And, there's also a bill in the Congress that would impose enormous levies on Russian oil customers. Which may or may not happen. So all of these pressures have to be brought to bear. But at the end of the day, Putin will not voluntarily end his war. He thinks he's winning it. He doesn't care about casualties. He even doesn't care about his economy. But regardless, he has to be damaged. They have to be pressured, and Ukraine has to be supported fully.
All right, last but not least, like you mentioned, it does seem like Germany and Europe is bankrolling weapon supplies to Ukraine as of the moment. Do you think that this is sustainable and will be enough to make up for the losses with the U.S. pulling out?
Well, I don't think the U.S. is going to pull out completely. I just don't see that, because when this rumor came out that some of the weapons had been paused, there was hell broke loose in Congress, both parties in the United States, saying, what are you doing? You can't do this. Ukraine needs all the help it can get, and so on and so forth. So I don't think that, they're going to pull out completely. But just in case, Europe has to be prepared to do whatever it can. And first thing they should do is cut off the fossil fuel imports, and then, double up every effort they have toward helping Ukraine with weapons.
All right. Thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on TV World.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. And thank you for tuning into this edition of World News Tonight. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.